So yesterday we were talking to some people, the Morning X subscribers, who had been accused, sometimes convicted, sometimes even served time for crimes that they had not committed. And some of the stories were, really disturbing, some chilling, some were aggravating, but this guy actually was in the news for quite a bit of time a little while ago because he served 16 years in jail for a rape which it was later proved he did not commit. In fact, the guy who proved it was none other than Barry Scheck.
How about that?
Calvin Johnson.
Mr. Fung.
How about that? That's right. He was convicted of rape in 1983, and witnesses were able to identify him by his voice and by the frame of his body, but they really never got a look at his face. They weren't really ever able to convict him based on his face. Nonetheless,
so that was their only evidence?
Nonetheless, there was probably some other circumstantial evidence, I'm guessing, we'll talk about in a second. This was in Clayton County. He was found guilty by an all-white jury. Imagine that.
The lady just pointed him out of a lineup and said that's him.
Imagine that. In Clayton County, a black man was appointed guilty by an all-white jury.
And he was arrested before for burglary. That was his only thing, I believe, before that.
That's right. So let's talk to Calvin Johnson. Good morning, Calvin.
Good morning.
How are you, sir?
Oh, I'm doing just great this morning.
I've seen you on the news the last month or so, and you don't seem bitter one bit, which was shocking.
Well, life goes on. It's a situation where while I was in prison, I gave my life to Christ, my Lord and Savior, and it was through His anointing on my life that I was able to forgive and to go on with my future.
Hey, let me ask you a couple questions. Now, first of all, you were officially released when?
June 15th.
And I'm guessing, take us back a little bit. The day that you were arrested 16 years ago, what were you doing? What were the circumstances there?
Well, basically, at the time of my arrest, I was with my parents. I was spending time with them at their house. I was just living a normal life, trying to get things together, and the police they came by and they arrested me, and they said, hey, we're going to charge you with these crimes. So I said, hey, what's going on? I don't know anything about this.
Mm-hmm. And they just hauled you away, and that was it?
They just hauled me away.
How old were you at that time, Calvin?
25 years old.
At what point did they told you they were arresting you for what, rape?
Rape, yeah.
And what kind of circumstantial evidence did they have? Obviously, it says here that they identified you based on your build and the sound of your voice. What other evidence did they bring up that they were able to at least get an arrest?
Basically, the evidence was more in my favor than their favor. I never really should have gone to trial. The only evidence they had was like you said, was a photographic identification, and I guess, like you said, a voice identification, which was kind of, really kind of weak in itself.
Right.
But at the same time, they had what they call, they took blood samples. And the blood samples came back, it was O positive, which is like 40% of the population.
Right.
And I'm O positive. So this is all. But now they also took hair samples. And the hair samples that came back belonged to an African-American person, but they didn't match me.
They
didn't match me. Also, the victim that supposed to have identified me in a photographic lineup later did not identify me in a live lineup. So all these things were going on. The hairs didn't match. I wasn't identified in a live lineup, and I'm like thinking, hey, am I going to go home? Are they going to let me go, or what? I never really believed I was going to trial.
Well, so if the hair didn't match, how do they keep you?
I don't know. I guess they were so intent on closing the case that that they decided it didn't make any difference whether I was guilty or not guilty, and they in their pursuit to move on with getting the case solved, they went forward.
You said that one of the women could not identify you in a live lineup. What about the other woman? Did she identify you in a lineup?
Okay, one of the ladies did identify me in a live lineup. And that was in a Fulton County case. Because there were actually two cases. There was one in Clayton, one in Fulton, and they happened I think within blocks of each other. And to this day, I believe they assumed that the same person committed both crimes.
Can you explain or put into words what it felt like when the jury came back with a guilty verdict, and then what it felt like when the judge finally sentenced you, knowing deep in your heart that you had been railroaded.
Right. Well, it wasn't a very, very pleasant feeling. It felt like a nightmare. It felt like a nightmare. It almost felt like I was in a dream world, but it was a bad dream.
It was one that you can't get out of.
One that you can't get out of.
You could say nothing or do nothing that could stop what was about to happen.
And I knew, you could sense the way things were going, and that the fact that they were going forward with such a small amount of evidence, that they were intent on getting a conviction at that time.
They wanted a body.
They wanted a body.
Do you think that it was that they wanted a body just because they wanted this thing to be over with? And a lot of times they want a body so that they can make the public or have the public rest assured that they got their man. Or do you also think that there's clearly racism involved?
Well, I don't like to too much press the issue of racism. I think the fact that you had an all-white jury did play a factor, because you get a group of people that are basically the same gender like that. They're going to basically stick together. And the victim was white, and I'm black, so it was a thing where they leaned more toward believing her side of the story than listening to the actual facts and evidence and looking at those facts and evidence as they were presented, and just having a clear picture. So their picture may have been clouded a little bit.
You were on a waiting list to check DNA. How long did that process take?
Well, I actually started pursuing a DNA test when I first heard about it in 1992, and that was on my own. But it wasn't until 1996 a friend of mine wrote me and told me about the Innocence Project in New York with Barry Scheck and Peter Newfield. And I wrote them in 1996, and they have there's hundreds of thousands of inmates across the country that write there.
How did they choose your case? Because I know that they don't choose every case. I mean, they have to turn a lot of people away.
Well, they would say that they chose it because of the uniqueness, as far as the fact that they had two copycat crimes, one in Clayton, one in Fulton County. In Clayton County, you have a jury that deliberates for a very short amount of time. That's all white, that comes back with a guilty verdict. In Fulton County, you have a jury that deliberates for about 2 days, and they come back with a not guilty verdict. But this jury is racially mixed, like with 7 blacks and 5 whites. So they say that this is a unique situation that they don't really know about anywhere else in the country, where you had 2 crimes that are like copycat crimes, and when one jury comes back with one verdict, another jury comes back with another verdict, and you look at the makeup of the jury. But now, when it comes to me, I won't say that they chose me because I say it was the power of God, and it was a blessing.
Calvin, when you went away to jail, were you going to school at the time, or were you working? What was going on in your life?
I basically was just working, living a normal life. I was engaged at the time. I was planning on getting married, just doing the normal things everybody else does, living the American dream.
Did she stick with you through this?
Well, it was kind of rough. She went on with her life. She's married now, has children, but we're good friends.
Did she? Because it's very understandable how a relationship wouldn't sustain 16 years in prison. Did she believe you?
Yes, she believed me. She always believed me.
When you're in jail, because everybody in jail is innocent. Right? I mean, no, everybody there is wrong.
You run across, like you said, everybody's innocent.
Everybody's innocent in jail. And I'm sure that, you talk to a lot of guys in jail, and when you said to, let's say, other inmates, I'm telling you, man, I didn't do it, did they just kind of...
Yeah, whatever.
Whatever. Laugh at you like, yeah, we're all innocent, man.
I didn't talk about it very much because, I knew the truth, and it was very, very painful. It took me years before I could release that pain. It took me about 10 years before I was able to get myself together, and through the power of God, I was able to release that pain and that hurt. But up until that point, I didn't talk about it because inmates have a way where they like to gossip anyway.
When you talk about release the pain, do you mean, when you say release the pain, you mean to be able to stop feeling bitter about your circumstance? Yes, to be able to forgive, to be able to let go of the bitterness, the anger, and to go forward.
We're talking to Calvin Johnson, who served 16 years of a life sentence, and then DNA tests got him released after if he would have pursued it, he'd still be sitting there today. Right, it was a life sentence. He'd be
lives
sitting
in,
there wondering.
He lives in Hapeville, Georgia. Calvin, tell us about your life now.
Wow, God has really blessed me. He's truly blessed me. I'm presently working. I'm working with a company called Tech Rail. They manufacture vinyl railer systems.
I saw you working on the on TV.
Yeah, this is a Christian-based company with some beautiful people. So this is a blessing. I'm doing that. I go over to Clayton State College, and at times I kind of brush up on my computer skills.
When you go to apply for a job now, is that on your record?
It can't be if you you're exonerated of all charges.
Everybody knows about me.
Well, but
so when I go and apply for a job, I don't hide anything from them. I explain to them. They want to know what you've been doing for the last 16 years. So I give them a lot of times. I give them the experience. I worked while I was in prison. I tell them about some of the things I did while I was in prison. But if I was serious about a job, and I thought it was a good enough job, and they questioned me and they wanted proof, I would present something to them. I'll show them my release papers. I would show them some newspaper clippings.
Now, you are not pursuing a lawsuit against anybody for being wrongly sent to prison?
Well, at the advice of the attorneys that are involved in the situation, they said it's hard to sue the state. And basically, if I did sue, I would lose.
Well, I mean, 16 years of your life was stolen from you.
Why would you lose? Why would they say you lose automatically like that?
The main thing they're going to seek is they're going to try to seek compensation on my behalf.
Sure,
They're going to try to get a bill passed through legislation. They're going, we're going to have a state representative to present it to the legislation when legislation comes back at the beginning of the year, and we're going to ask for compensation. And, I feel strongly that, the state should compensate me, and they probably will, because, when I came out, I was, like I said, I was flat broke. I didn't have a penny. So I'm working hard now. I'm getting a paycheck now, but I still got a long ways to go. You could never, no amount of money could ever replace the years that were stolen.
16 years of your life.
And relationships that were broken.
That's
and
right.
I mean, all that stuff. It's hard to put a price tag on it.
But at the same time, to receive something now will help me, kind of gain or kind of catch up, because I'm so far behind. And that would be a blessing.
Thank you,
Very
Calvin, for telling
you're
your story.
It was nice to meet you, Calvin.
Yeah, nice to meet you. I enjoyed talking with you.
You're listening to the best of the Morning X. You can also catch it on the Morning X podcast, wherever you get your podcasts, or at 99x.com.